Welcome to MTALKS from MHouse, where we sit down with innovators in the Web3 and NFT space. Today, we have a true innovator in technology and art. Over the last 6 years, Sofia Garcia has become a noteworthy leader in the generative art space. She's been honored with Apollo Magazine's 40 Under 40 in art and tech. She's the founder of ArtxCode, a generative art house, and she currently sits on the curation board for Artblocks and is also an advisor for the company. Before that, she worked at Onyx by JP Morgan and as director of education at Code Art. She teaches young girls how to make art with code. I would like to extend, on behalf of MHouse, a very warm welcome to Sofia Garcia.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, very happy to be here.
What was your first passion? Was it art? Was it technology or code or something in between?
I would have to say it was art initially. So I had been studying art. I'd been getting into, I was very into actually like the street art scene for some time. I had some really good friends of mine who were really into graffiti. And so when Wynwood, the art districts, popped up in Miami, I was just really involved. So helping my friends out with their murals as much as I could. Playing around with the spray paint, but mostly I was there like painting, fixing the edges. I just loved it. And so I was, like in art school doing all of these things. And, I was very interested in technology, but to me, it was always, it was hard for me to wrap my head around. It was kind of just like, this thing exists. This is insane. I would see an installation and just be like, okay, cool. But as time passed, I was working at a gallery and I kind of started to realize that this, it just wasn't a sustainable career choice for me. So I had been hearing about, computer programming. That was like, when coding really, people were really talking about it, and coding education was really starting to pop up in different alternatives. So I decided to take a coding class. And so that really changed everything for me. And I think that was in 2014 or 2015. And so for the first time, I truly understood what it meant to create something with the computer. And in that sense, what it actually meant to take control of the computer and have it do what you want it to do. And the first language I learned was C. It's kind of like granddaddy C. It's an older language, very low level. You have to manage absolutely everything. And after that, I did one of these, boot camps in Miami, and we were learning Ruby and all of these things. And going from C to Ruby was like such a huge jump that I actually didn't really. I liked it, but it wasn't, it's somewhat difficult, whatever. Anyway, through all of this, I became obsessed with the history of computer generated artwork, and in turn, really got into generative art, really just trying to focus on what does it mean to be creative with code, and kind of taking a step back on this like macro level, just being like, holy shit. Like the computer hasn't even been around for 100 years. Everything that we're creating with it is so significant, so culturally significant. Again, kind of from this like art history side of looking at it. And so I just wanted to be involved in any way that I could. So I was I got really into processing specifically. So I learned about processing. For those who don't know what processing is a computer programming. It's a library that was really built to help. It was built off Java originally. It's actually its own computer programming language, I would argue now. Anyway, it was based off Java, and it really helps artists and create artwork with code, get simple shapes up on the screen, get colors out, and in an easy, easy to follow way. And so I started teaching that in Miami, teaching young girls how to make art with code. So the organization's Code Art. I'm on the board now, but I started off as their director of education. So that really kind of started everything. And then I started finding more artists who were doing it, sharing their work. And then I started putting on shows, and it kind of all goes from there. So I think art first, tech second, long story short, and and everything in between. During all that, then I did get a job at JP Morgan as a developer, and so I did a lot of front end development for them. So lots of data visualization, animation type of thing. And then I moved over to another team, digital experience design, where I was a creative technologist, which is more on the prototyping side with their UI toolkit stuff, just testing things out that were coming out of the bank. And then I moved over to their blockchain team. And so I was on the founding design strategy team, and I sat kind of between the tech and design world. So the technical design strategist, where what does it look like to have to actually engage with the blockchain with a financial product. And that was really interesting. And it was really fun to see how the bank was looking at it. But there were also, there were a lot of limitations. So, we were looking at, NFTs, and I was looking at a few different NFT workflows. And it's exciting to see what they're thinking of. But, the space is moving very, very quickly. And in the traditional corporate world, things don't tend to move as quickly. So,
They do not. I mean, I eat, sleep, and breathe this industry. You do as well. I can't keep up with what's happening. You probably can't. But your story is really interesting, because I was going to ask you what coding you learned. So really interesting to hear you started with C. You started down in the nuts and bolts down there. So you've got a really deep understanding of code, which is great. And you said something else that I thought was really interesting. You said, computers have only been around for less than 100 years, and everything they do is culturally significant. And I think that's a really interesting point to touch on, because I know from my experience, if I speak to people about NFTs that are not in the space, and I understand it, they very often find it almost impossible to wrap their heads around how these JPEGs, in some cases, are worth or selling for this amount of money. Obviously, this is the money they see first. And they also just find it very difficult to see what the significance is culturally and also technologically. They're like, oh, it's just a couple of pixels. It's 24 pixels by 24 pixels for a CryptoPunk. And it's quite difficult to explain to people how much engineering has gone into even something like CryptoPunks. And then obviously, if you look at generative art like Artblocks, and I'm sure some of the work that you do, even more so. So, I mean, how would you explain to a normie where the value lies in there? Not necessarily dollar value, but we can touch on that, but just value generally.
I mean, for NFTs, I mean, I think, it's hard for us for the everyday, I guess not us because we get it, but, for the everyday person to wrap their head around NFTs, because we've lived in a world without them for so long. So it's like, I see digital, I automatically assume I can right click, save it. I can post it on my thing. I cannot attribute it to anyone. I actually used to be a huge, when I was younger, the early days of Instagram, I was always looking for fun content online, never knew where it came from. And I would just repost it because it looked cool. And so we're just used to that. We have no idea, everything is easily reproducible, but what's different now is the NFT. The NFT, while it is not, I think that also the biggest thing here is that the NFT itself is really just the deed of ownership. It is just your deed that says, I own this. And it came from this artist, and this is you can always research and find who the artist is and verify that this is legitimate, if you're willing to do the research, because there's some people who get rugged and they didn't do the research. It's hard. And I think that, right now it is a paradigm shift in how we think about ownership and look at, digital ownership in general. I think one of the coolest things about the show that we did in Miami was we had everything there had a backed NFT. Everything that was displayed, I kind of told someone we had security there, but I was kind of for what? Anyone could take one of these pieces off the wall, run away with it, and nothing would happen. They have no proof of ownership for it. This thing is going for, if this set is going for $10 million, someone can steal those 4 prints off the wall, but have fun trying to sell it for $10 million. You have no way of verifying that you own it. So to me, NFTs, and the way that I was originally working with NFTs anyway were as certificates of authenticity. And so when we first started messing around with NFTs in 2019, I would have
Is
collectors.
this in JP Morgan within your career there?
Separately. So outside of
Okay.
JP Morgan, I was always doing art shows. I was
Okay.
organizing so the first exhibition that we did, show, I guess, was within a smaller fair called, it was their first time, also their first, the Contemporary and Digital Art Fair, CADAF. And so it's really funny to think about it now. Like there were only a few of us there were two galleries. Mine, there was three of us anyway that had prints with us. And so I had Dmitry Cherniak and Tyler Hobbs pieces. And then in front of me was the Kate Bass gallery. She had CryptoPunks and, a few other pieces I'm forgetting, Kevin Abosh and, all of these things. But at that time, I was very much working in like the physical realm of digital art. I loved having prints. I loved this idea of tangibility and really being able to explain it to the everyday person. So we had printouts of the code, so that people could actually connect with that. It's once like, and we had the physical so we had one piece of Dimitri's that we decided to sell as an NFT, which I was very hesitant about, but we did it. And after that, anytime someone wanted to collect an artwork, I would have them buy the NFT as the certificate of authenticity and give them the print. So for me, it's like, that is, long story short, again, it really is just this way of verifying, like, I own the rights to I own the value of this artwork. So like you can go ahead and try and sell a print of it, but like good luck trying to do that.
Particularly in the case of Artblocks pieces, and I'm sure others as well. I mean, not all NFTs are created equal, but I think Artblocks, pretty much everything is on chain. And even the code that generates the pieces is on chain as well. So I think that's
like the most important, that's the most important part. And having like the seed, like you can always recreate it. And I think that's why Artblocks projects tend to hold more weight than other art projects, given it's not always the case. You will see pieces like on Super Rare or on, wherever, where there may be just truly just a JPEG and they're doing also just as fine. So, but I do think that that's what really allowed Artblocks that catapulted Artblocks into the arena that it's in now, because everything is on chain.
Yeah. The easiest thing to attach digital ownership to is digital goods. So digital images, for example. And I think by definition, that's where we started. But I think it's only going to increase from there. So I think digital art will always be very important, but I think it's just a matter of time before most of our real world assets are tokenized as NFTs and placed on the blockchain.
Yeah, because there's a lot of value when you have a lot of this stuff digitized in a way. Like it helped, like at the bank, for example, we were just like looking at like what would it look like to tokenize, the art lending process, like to have, to tokenize physical artworks, to go through the art lending program, like process, tokenizing aspects of a loan, and like having it all be automated. Right now, it's like, these things are very fractured across departments and all of these things. And so what if you could just automate all of it and really limit the amount of paperwork that's done, and just, the ease of just working in finance. So it's interesting, and I mean, we'll see how it works, because I'm interested in how we will start connecting, the token, like just the user flow of tokenizing something that's in the physical space, in the digital, and like you being able to connect them. And these are the things that over the next few years we'll start seeing like really explode. I've seen that there's a really interesting company, I think also based in Amsterdam, called Aware, that they're doing it with clothing. So like at the fiber level, like having like these tracer particles where you can scan something, kind of like how they have these scanners for like diamonds where you can see if it's real or not. It's kind of the same thing, but with, you can imagine going up to someone's like, Balenciaga something, scanning it and being like, all right, it's legitimate. Here's like you can see the record of it, and things like that. So let's see. And I think if you could do that with fiber and you can do it with clothing, why couldn't you do it with canvas or paper? So let's see.
So I saw, actually, we were just talking about Artblocks. I saw you mentioned on Twitter that you recently picked up a Chimera piece.
Oh my God.
So
yes,
well done,
beautiful.
first of all.
They're
beautiful pieces.
Stunning. I see all the pieces that are submitted. So before they even reach the curation board, I take a look and see what, who's applying, who's not, and it's a very small group of us. There's only 4, and we basically decide if they're going to move forward or not. And the second we saw that project, it was like, oh my God. It was like, absolutely move it forward. Like, this is stunning, stunning. Because it's so different. And, it really pulls in so many aspects of like what you love about like traditional, like physical artwork, painting, in a way, bringing it to the digital space. Also, like, there's the whole 3D aspect. Sometimes you don't even know, like when I first saw my piece, I didn't realize that it had the pipe in it. And I was like, oh my God, like, and it made it even more fun. So it was just a really special, beautiful project. So like, bravo to the artist. And, I think on the Artblocks side, I know that we're really hoping to see artists really push the boundaries and what's possible in for generative art. So that was a prime example of that. So yeah, very exciting.
Fantastic. For those people who aren't aware, Chimera is a generative art piece released on Artblocks. And the artist, I hope I put this well, but he tried to recreate essentially still life in generative pieces. So typically with flowers, with vases, with maybe a bottle of wine. So he incorporated all these pieces of traditional art history and then made these beautiful generative pieces that are, pretty.
Yeah, he did a wonderful job of just bringing that to life and translating it into like the digital realm. It's really is such a special project.
Yeah, well, congratulations on getting one. I missed it, as I said, but that's beautiful. So you were just talking about choosing those pieces. So when you guys, it's part of the Artblocks curated. Obviously, Artblocks has different streams. One of those is curated, where you choose them. What just very quickly, what are the criteria that you look at? Is it more about the visual art? Is it also about the artists themselves? Is it the code behind it? Is it a mixture of all three?
I think it's a kind of the total package. So I think when we first, the stage that I was talking about, it was basically, it's kind of like quality control a bit, where it's like, okay, let's take a look at these projects before we even send it over for the curation board to vote. So as of lately, I have not been voting as much because I'm very involved in this preliminary process. And part of this preliminary process is, seeing what's going to be accepted, what's not, because we are getting strict. And then we will see if there's a project that we see a lot of promise in, or, if they are doing so many things right, but there's maybe just one thing that we know can really, it just needs a little bit. I'll do mentoring sessions with artists. And so I will hop on the call, we'll review their project, I will give them some feedback and give them some things to think about, of how they could potentially push the project, to the next level, and really ensure and basically put their best foot forward for their first or second or third, whatever it may be, a foray into the Artblocks ecosystem. So once they're ready to submit to the curation board, if they've never had a curated project before, they will either be they can either do factory or curation, or curated. And basically we have a rather large curation board, and across different backgrounds too. So there are some people on the curation board who maybe don't have like a very large art background. There are some that do. And so with this, we kind of get like this number. And so it's 1 to 5, and it's either for curated or it's either for factory. And that's, depending on which way it leans, we'll go, we'll decide if there's everything, if it's ever directly in the middle, then we do another mentoring session with them. We kind of, try to see what we can do to push them to either get over to curated, or it's decided it'll be a factory project. So that's kind of like inside the process of like what it looks like. And if you are a curated artist and you wanted to do another project, you could do something called Playground. And that is kind of in this like middle area where it really is just a playground to put out a new project, experiment with a new idea, and without kind of like the pressure of having to, resubmit and things like that.
Sounds great. Tell us, like, roughly how many submissions does Artblocks receive?
So let's say, every week we'll review about 7 of them. And I think, now we're getting a lot more strict with what we're accepting and what we're not. So I would say 3 to 4, it's usually like half of them are a no. And then the other half will be, okay, let's either chat with them or let's just push them along. Because there's sometimes we'll see a project and this is just our guess, like we'll be like, this could probably make a really great factory piece. And so, like let it go. Or this one will probably be, we really never know. We can just, we use our best judgment of just being in the space for a while and being like, this is a really wonderful piece. And so let's move them along. It may not be, we might assume that it might not make it to curated, but it's still a really wonderful factory piece that the community would really like. So it's kind of like, but yeah, there are some that just like miss that, the depth. There's always has to be this like layer of it that you're just like, I need more. I just need more. Or I think one of the things that's also interesting is that we just see a lot of the same, motifs coming. I don't know how many people have submitted a Mondrian like generator of sorts, and that's something that, from like one of the first projects I think I ever tried to build too was like a Mondrian generator. So it's, it's there are things like that where it's like, okay, we've seen this already. We cannot let that go through. Or even kind of like Spirograph, now we're getting really strict about things that we have seen in the past and have made it before, but we just can't anymore, because then it just gets repetitive. And we really want to challenge artists to really put their best foot forward and to really think about, what they want to produce. That's really just unique and special for the community.
That's great. That's great. Yeah. I mean, I guess you guys have such a, have a special place within the community. So great that you're pushing it forward. Which I guess leads to the next question. So what do you think is the future of generative art in general? Is there anything that you see coming up that you like? What are the next game changers that you see? Like I spoke to Eric Calderon from Artblocks a couple of weeks ago. He said he was very excited about generative manufacturing, which is, I don't know, is that something you're familiar with?
Not entirely, but I know that there are teams out there who have been really into generative, like using generative process in their design. I am forgetting her last name, and this is so embarrassing. I know that her first name is Jessica. She has been doing this for years, just building chairs, staircases, and things like this, with generative design. I think, for me, it's like, I'm always so impressed when people like I'm ready to be surprised in how it evolves. Because even though I was working in the NFT space, in 2019, just experimenting, I would have never imagined where we are right now. So I think it's like, let's see, like surprise me. I'm ready, to see what's next. The best thing I can do is really just pick up quickly and run with it and see, just rolling with the punches. Okay, what's new in the space? Okay, how are we going to adapt to that and address it? But, just the ways in which we're seeing just even different artists engage with how they're creating art, the way that we're supposed to interact with it, I think is so exciting, because it's NFT, the blockchain has really unlocked the way we experience digital generative art specifically, whereas beforehand we were really looking at emulations or recordings of programs running, and now we really get to see like that we get to see it running live in its native environment and own that part of it, which I think is so cool. Yeah, because I remember going to see a Manfred Moore uh, exhibition in New York at Bitforms Gallery. And it was the first time I had seen an artist have a screen, and then behind the screen, he had the computer running, which was running the algorithm live. And so, and that was like such an aha moment for me. I was like, he gets it, like this is it. And of course he gets it, he's Manfred Moore. He's been doing this for years. And so, it was like, oh my God, this is so cool. And I remember just wanting to do that. I was like, I hope that, for my next, I can have the actual performance. And then here comes Artblocks, a year or two later, and you actually get, that's what you're getting. You get the performative act of the program running live. And, like the act of you purchasing it, that affects what you receive. It's just so cool. Like it really is.
I love your passion. I totally agree. I think it is amazing. I do have a question, and I don't know what the answer to this is. If we just step back from generative art for a moment to, let's say, I don't know, what do we, crypto art or NFT art, or art generally. I see a lot of artists now, let's say traditional artists, and they're like, oh, NFTs are blowing up. I need to get into NFTs. Now, from my experience so far, what I've seen is that the NFT art, crypto art, blockchain art that's been successful so far has been digital native. Either it's generative art with algorithms, or it's people, as a good example, I guess, but somebody who makes native digital art using digital goods, or it's been PFPs, I guess, which are also native digital. Music, I see becoming very popular again. That's a natively digital art form nowadays, pretty much for the most part. And photography, which again is 100% digital these days. So a long way to ask the question, but I mean, do you see a role or a space? I mean, I think there will be some role there, but do you think it'll remain being digitally native art that's important in the space, or do you think there's some way? I mean, we saw Damien Hirst do something, played with the idea. There's a local artist here called Dadara who did something very similar, but took it a step further. That's very interesting with a crypto gray man, where he actually hand painted a pixelated image, and so that was the original piece, and then he turned that into a digital NFT. So the NFT was actually a copy of an original.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah.
Yeah. So he turned the whole idea on its head.
I think
so that's interesting. We saw Banksy, they're burning one, but with those exceptions of those very high end ones, I don't know. Is there a place for traditional art to break into NFTs? Do you think?
Yes, but it will move. It has to move slower than the way that digital art is traded, because digital art lives in digital space. So it's very fluid. I could sell my artwork, my digital artwork I think this is working with an artist from India. This is what really like blew my mind one time when I was working with this artist from India. We were going to do a Harsha Agrawal. We were going to do a show. Obviously, it got canceled because of COVID. This was in 2020. We decided to be part of this online fair. The online fair was a bust. We had all of his prints in India, and we didn't sell anything, which was new for me. I was like, what? I was like, why don't we just try something? I'm like, why don't we just try posting your work on Superware? Let's see what happens. And so he took the digital side of the artwork and tokenized it. Everything sold more than what we had the prints originally listed as. I didn't have to send anything. I didn't have to engage with the collectors, ask where they live. I didn't have to pay for shipping. There was no production costs involved. It blew my mind. And that was really that aha moment where this is a completely new business model. It changes everything. I mean, I even lowered my commission at that point, because I was like, I didn't do much. Like I was like, I curated the show. We put it together. We did some marketing, but like half the headache was gone, And so when you look at, I think that there is a use case for having an NFT as just a digital record of ownership. Again, like just saying like, I own this physical artwork, like that is the new certificate of authenticity. Where, beforehand, like, I have a folder filled with all of my certificates of artwork that I own, but like, God forbid, like what happens if there's a fire or a flood, and now all those certificates are gone and there's no digitized version of them. So I do think that there is a use case for it in digital art. I mean, in physical physical space, but it's just not going to move as quickly as something like, a CryptoPunk where it doesn't actually have to like move anywhere. And so, and it can change hands 3 times a day and no one will bat an eyelid because it can. But when you're talking about something physical, like, what is that? And this is something I talk about all the time. What does the user experience of shipping something in crypto look like? When you have a physical artwork, there are people who want to remain anonymous. You have to be able to put in the information. You need to make sure that that piece goes from this place to that place. And how do you make sure of that? It's like, I have had to do that already a few times where we have artists who have prints of their NFTs. They insist that the print goes with the NFT. And, I am the one that's making sure that this piece in New York is now being sent to a storage facility in Geneva. What if they were in like Japan and I had to send it over to California? These things need to be a little bit more automated. They need to be a little bit more sophisticated. We're very, very early days. So I'm interested to see how that starts to really like flesh out over the next few years.
Yeah, me too. And from the traditional art space, I mean, if you let's say a painter, I mean, what are the options for them? I mean, to take a photograph essentially or scan their image and place that on the blockchain. That's pretty much it. I mean, it's either just a certificate of authenticity, which has nothing to do with the actual art itself, or else it's an image of that art, I guess. I mean, do you see other options?
I mean, I think that's like, if there really aren't a lot. And like sometimes it's like, okay, do you actually need to engage with NFT? Like, does it make sense for your project? And sometimes it doesn't. And that's okay. It doesn't, if you wanted to experiment with having like, again, that certificate of authenticity where you're kind of like, maybe you're tokenizing or having like a digital like certificate, and that is, what is attached with the artwork. And so you can just hold that, but you have the physical piece in your possession, and it's more of a traditional, and while someone can see it on OpenSea, the sale of it would actually probably look more like a traditional art sale where someone's, engaging with them. Okay, you're gonna have to pay for shipping and this and this. And then once it's done, I'll send you, the whole packages. I'll send you the NFT, I'll send you the address and da. But it's just different.
And that example you made of the Indian artist, how did they scan or take photographs of the original art? Is that how they transferred it from?
No, so their artwork was digital native.
It was.
They had some, they did have some pieces that had some painting over it. But I believe that they used a digital version of that. So.
Funny, just to follow up on the point you made there. So the artist I mentioned, the local artist here who hand painted the pixelated digital version, he auctioned both at the same time as an experiment to see which one would achieve a higher price, the physical version or the digital. Anyway, within MTALKS, we bought both of them. But the interesting thing was that the digital version obviously bid, it won, it was immediately transferred. I think it was in Rarible. Immediately transferred to the wallet, done. The physical piece, actually was going to end up going from Amsterdam to Spain. And the physical piece, well, first of all, there was I think a 10% gallery fee. Then there was a 9% VAT fee on top of that. So we found something that was more expensive than Ethereum gas fees. Then it had to be stored, and then it had to be shipped. And they didn't want to ship it, and to pick it up, you'd have to book an extra seat in the airplane to bring it. It wasn't huge, but it was big. And that moment right there, really, as we looked at it, and we look at these two pieces, one digital, one physical, and suddenly, just in that moment, you're like, wow, the physical piece of art, sounds crazy to say it, has so many drawbacks. Many.
Like it's and so now you have all of these collectors who have hundreds, if not thousands, of artworks that they've collected online, and like they don't need to buy a storage unit that is air controlled and has all the security. They need a hardware wallet. They have their hardware wallet, and given there are drawbacks to that too, but it's a lot more manageable. Like if you're moving, all you have to do is, you take your hardware wallet, you put it in your pocket, and then you leave. There's no calling this extra moving service to handle all of your artwork, your sculptures, your this, your that. Like there's so much money involved with that. And, it's I mean, I do love the physical aspect, bringing like pulling the digital art out of the computer, I think is also really important. And really there's also some fun to that. But I think the reason that we're seeing this explosion in this art and seeing the prices move as quickly as they do is because they can actually change hands as quickly as possible. And that is the fascinating part about it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. What do you think about PFPs? Obviously, punks kind of started it. What do
Yeah,
you think
so
about the recent spate of just like nonstop PFPs? Do you own any, or do you find them interesting?
no, I
Do you
don't.
think they'll last? I mean, the historically significant ones will, I think.
I mean, I'm a huge fan of punks. The first time I learned about them, I was so Pence was, he was doing a talk at MIT. MIT was having a creative hackathon. It's called Hacking Arts, and I remember doing it, and that was the first time I really learned about digital collectibles. And he was kind of explaining how him and Matt got together and started experimenting with this, and how everything was free. And I think it's a genius project. I think, again, it holds all the historical significance that a project could hold. So when I'm going to talk about PFPs now, they are excluded from that. So I think there's no denying that people love being part of something, being part of a community. I think Bored Ape Yacht Club has done an amazing job of creating a community, creating a dialogue around, what it means to be an ape, and things like that. Personally, I don't.
Could have done a better job on educating on security.
I think a lot of them have to do with, people just wanting to make money. We've seen a lot of them come out, and people do all these things. So I think, it's understanding like what are the intentions of the project? Why have they created it? What is, is it a group of biz dev guys coming together, hiring a random artist to come in and like do this? It's all of these kind of like, make a difference in my opinion as to why. I think the one PFP project I bought, well, I didn't buy, it was free, was the Crypto Venetians from Artblocks, where I went to Venice and I saw like, the live minting, and that was really fun. I came out to Pitbull, I think, was it Culo, because I was like, I have to, represent Miami, which was really fun, and like that was really fun. Like, that was a fun experience. And so so I do own a Crypto Venetian, which you could argue is a PFP. But for the most part, they're not something I specialize in. They're not something that I really connect with. Like, unless they came out with someone had this like amazing, incredible story that I was like, all right, cool, like I'm in. But so far, none of them have really done that for me personally. And it's weird because like also just like my collecting philosophy, which is not really a philosophy at all. It's like, do I have the money for it? Do I connect with it? Sure. Like, like those are the two questions. Like, does it really pull me in? Do I need it? But there's some products out there that I absolutely love, but just, I was priced out, or, and like, I just have to be like, okay, like now's not the time and it's okay. I'll keep moving, but PFPs have never really drawn me. Like, those are roadmap projects. Those are very specific. Like, we are trying to add value to increase the value like of what you can sell this for. And that's just not what I'm looking to collect.
Yeah. No, makes sense. And I think that causes a lot of the kind of confusion for people generally when they look at the NFT space, and they're like, when they struggle to understand the valuations. I guess if everything was this like really complex mathematical generative code, it might make more sense. And then
I think that's what frustrates me a lot, when collectors try to equate what artists are producing on Artblocks to something to a PFP, and because they're talking about sales and volume and this and that. Like, I think I feel very protective over the artists because I tend to know a lot of them personally. I know how difficult it is to create this type of artwork, to create an algorithm that can create 1,000 iterations that are all distinctly different but hold the same like compositional value. Like, it's hard. It is hard. It is so freaking hard to do it. And so when people kind of just like talk about it and throw them around and kind of just like discuss them like they're just stocks or this, it makes me very angry, because these are artists that have been doing this before NFTs, and they do it for their own reasons. And it's not, and I tweeted about this, and I got some pushback from collectors who were not happy about it, but artists make artwork for a load of reasons, and none of them are to pump your bags. None of them. They don't make art in hopes that, you know, you are going to make a huge profit off of it. It's either you like what I'm doing as an artist or you don't. You know, to talk about market, like the market and all of these things, that's what profile picture projects are for, because that's what they're actively trying to do. They want to have trading, they want to be collectibles. And so art is art. That is the value, and it is subjective, and it is supposed to be subjective, and they are not supposed to be trading every day, you know, switching hands all the time. You buy art because you want to hold it. Again, that's my take. I understand, you know, the realist view is there are people who are going to try to profit off of it, and that's you know, that is it. But at the same time, like, get a grip and don't be so, you know, I think there are some people who are just like feel very entitled that if they buy artwork from an artist, that the artist now has to do everything in their power to prove their market, and to, you know, they need to be engaging with the collectors, and they need to be tweeting, and they need to be doing this, and they don't, because they don't work for you. They are artists, and you bought their artwork because you like their artwork. And so accept that and be willing to spend money that you have, and leave it in the artwork if no one wants to buy it from you because you decided to buy it. And so that's kind of like where my frustration lies, when people start, like, you know, complaining about not being able to move their artwork. Well, then don't buy it.
Yeah, I mean, there's some interesting PFP projects out there, I guess. And to be fair, I think it's also worth mentioning that even, you know, PFP projects, you know, there is quite some work that goes into some of them.
Yeah.
In terms of the art and also the generative side of things. Do you want to tell us about ArtxCode? What is it? I guess you left the corporate world to do this. Okay.
So ArtxCode really started off as an Instagram account. That was like, it's my humble beginnings. I think it started in 2015, 2016. It was around the same time where I just really got into generative art. And so it was just this anonymous account that I was uploading artwork. I was sharing some of my early work, finding out who else was doing this, and really just trying to build that community. And so it was just, you know, I was constantly on Instagram trying to find, you know, creative coding types, like going through those hashtags and just sharing it. And that's where I met a lot of the early artists, or artists who've been doing this for a while. And so, you know, I was getting emails all the time, like, hey, will you feature me? Hey, will you do this? And it was fun. And it was just a good way for me to see, like, what else is out there. And it was kind of like this resource center. That's really what I wanted it to be. So kind of commenting on what was happening in the space at the time and things of that sort. And then once I moved to New York to work at JP Morgan as a developer, I finally had some extra income. And so I started to collect this artwork that I was seeing online. So I started collecting from Dimitri. I started collecting from Tyler. Those two were really like the first artists that I was like actively acquiring work from. Also Caleb Ogg, Isohedron, like I bought a piece of his also. And so, you know, those are early days. And so when I first decided to do that show that I had kind of mentioned briefly earlier at CADAF, the Contemporary Digital Art Fair, with Dimitri and Tyler, it was the first time I decided to sell artwork. So, you know, we put on the show, we sold out the show, which was crazy. And then it was kind of like, I guess I sell artwork now on my free time outside of work. So, you know, I was really upfront at JP Morgan about what I was doing. You know, I had to sign all the paperwork. I'm selling art outside of here, you know, I'm selling some digital art. They didn't think that it posed any issues. So I kept doing that. And so, you know, on the side, working with artists after work, before work, having meetings, and just organizing shows and having a good time. And then, you know, enter the realm of NFTs, and things really, really exploded. And the artists that I was working with, you know, are now selling for, you know, amounts that we would have dreamed of, you know, like that we wouldn't have even, like, I would have never thought that these artists were going to be selling this for this amount in our lifetime, let alone in, like, you know, under 5 years. So, you know, it basically right now what I'm doing is, you know, assisting the collectors who are really interested in the space, helping them find, you know, work for their collections. I'm advising different companies. I'm collaborating with artists who want to do drops. I love curating shows and releasing them. And, you know, well, it's obviously so much fun. But, you know, it's a lot of advising, it's a lot of, you know, collaboration, a lot of brokering of secondary art sales too on the side. So, you know, that's right now I think it's experimentation time, but we're really lucky that generative art specifically has actually like kicked off right now. If not, I'd probably still be at JP Morgan.
That's fantastic. It's a great time to be alive, I think. It's very exciting. So yeah, you were talking. So you started to do shows, do exhibitions, sell art, and as I said at the beginning, that's where we met. Was at the digital event in Miami. In Miami, I mentioned you turned this beautiful, this very raw industrial space into a very beautiful industrial exhibition, and it was fantastic. Can you tell us about the process of organizing that and what motivated you?
One, I wanted to do a show for Artblocks. I think that's kind of how it originally started. You know, I remember talking to Eric, and I was like, we should do something for art when Art Basel comes to Miami, that Miami Art Week, and then over the year, we started seeing more and more people hop into this space. We saw a lot of the traditional auction houses come in, take really, really stunning artwork and bring it into the real world and drop the ball completely in how they displayed it. And so for me, it was, I respect the space a lot. I respect the artists a lot, what they do. And when you have auction houses coming in, demanding a certain price point, and this being maybe the first time certain collectors have seen this artwork, it's hard to take it seriously when it's being displayed on a TV screen, out of aspect ratio, this big. And, you know, it was just very frustrating for me to see. And so, I kind of just decided to show this is how you can show digital artwork in a way that respects the artist and the artwork. You know, if this work is going to go for millions of dollars, for me, it was like, let me show you why. Let me show you why this you know demands this certain price point right now. And I think we achieved that. You know, it was. And some of it was as easy as just asking the artist, you know. It was like Casey Reis's piece, the centuries that are circles and they're animated. It was kind of like, what are we going to do here? You know, I was like starting to think about it. I was like, you know, like, do we have square screens and we cover that? You know, kind of going through all the different processes. And I was like, you know what? Let me email him. And he was like, use a projector. You know, I want, you know, these what was it, like circular blocks, you know, and then you can just project onto them. And I was like, that's genius. Okay, yes. Like, why didn't I ask you earlier? And so, you know, we had that's how we displayed them there. Some of them we did take kind of like, I guess, creative license. That there were some that, you know, the Fidenza, for example, I was like, the Fidenza has a certain aspect ratio. It is a still image. There is no screen that is really going to do justice for.
So Fidenza is not a square.
No, it's not a square. It's 4:3. Yeah, it's a 4:3 ratio. So it's a little bit off. So yeah, so you could try to use a square screen and it would kind of get cut off, or you could use a regular like kind of like TV screen and you would still get kind of like these. I'm in the process of writing kind of like, you know, a whole kind of thing about why we chose what we chose, the pitfalls, you know, what I was very lucky that my sister is a set designer, works with set, you know, is in production. And so we had an amazing team here in Miami that helped build everything out, so professional, and really helped turn this into, it felt more like a museum, you know, exhibition than, you know, a pop-up. And I think that was what we were really excited about, that we really wanted to elevate the space. I think that's always been my goal, just to elevate the way that people engage with generative art and make sure that it doesn't just feel like this thing that we do on the computer, that it really is an important art movement that garners the respect that it deserves, because I love it. I think it's cool, you know. And that's just translating it. That's really all I want to do. Translate it for the everyday person so that they get it. I think one of the things with our write-ups and stuff, we actually stayed away from the words NFTs a lot. We really wanted people to appreciate the art at art value, and it's part of the conversation that we had, that everything here is has an NFT associated with it, and that was a cool part. And also just having fun with the way that we present it. Like having the hologram of the squiggle was like so fun, and it was very important for me.
How does it feel to be the Genesis creator of the 3D hologram squiggle?
Well, I have to say a big thank you to the team at The Endless, which is a team that we worked with, and they helped on like the technical side of basically making my dreams come true with the hologram. They handled the organizing the projectors, and they onboarded they helped with all the screens. It was definitely a team effort. The people that I had behind us was just, they made it happen, So I'm happy that they finally succumbed to, because I'm telling you, I was screaming about, I was like, I need the hologram. They're like, so if I don't think we're going to be able to do it. Like, no. And I was like, please. And we finally did it. Eric was so happy too. And I think that was also the fun part. And, partnering him with the artist who then created it in 3D. So, it was, everyone was involved. I made sure that all the artists, knew what we were, up to, as much as I could anyway, communication. But yeah.
No, it worked really, really well. I think you definitely achieved your goal. Could you just run us through just real briefly the different media that you use? Because I think if I recall correctly, the ringers were on prints.
Yes. So we had some as prints. So pretty much for me, it was if it was a still, and the detail was very intricate, I wanted to move it towards a print. Just because whenever you go to a show, the first thing you do is get up real close and take a look at it. And so, that was really important for me. If something had audio, I think we had two pieces with audio. One of them was Ixchel's It's So Yard, and then the other one was the collaboration between Aaron Penne and Beretta. And those two were separated. We had both of those luckily were, in the proper dimensions, that they actually worked very well with the Samsung frame. So we used Samsung frames for pieces that were landscape view, or portrait. Those were, we used, and so anything that was square, we had some sets that were together that kind of had this mix of stills and video, but those were all squared together, and so we would do. We had digital digital frames that were squared, and then we created our own. So we worked with my team basically customized those, and then we had custom frames also built on top of them. So we had it was a screen, and then we had a black frame. We had one of the Mona Lisa. We had a Mona Lisa now in color piece that we actually had we gold leafed the frame just to kind of nod to the original Mona Lisa. And then I had two pieces by an artist, Minnie Ataru, who she works with silver a lot. If you look at her work online, she tends to use these silver frames, which I absolutely love. And so we also silver leafed her frames just to kind of honor that. And then we had projectors we had a projector with Casey Rias's piece. We had the hologram, and then we had a massive projector that went up to the wall that was kind of just showing all of the work
above the stage.
Those projectors were awesome. They were huge. It's so cool.
No, very cool. No, it was good. It already worked. I could talk about that for a long time, but Eric. So we're creating an online gallery and also a physical one. Eric kindly offered to show some of his squiggles in the online gallery. I need to ask him about the physical gallery. Would you consider displaying pieces from your collection or from?
Oh yeah, of course. Yes. I have so many that are hidden because I like to keep my OpenSea kind of clean. So I only keep usually from one project or something, but I have a nice secret arsenal of stuff. So I typically I tend to collect in groups of threes. Tend to if it makes sense. Chimera, I did not have the budget for three, but for the most part I tend to collect in three. So I have a bunch. Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot there to choose from.
what advice would you give to somebody? Don't do it, or go for it.
Save your sanity. No. Do it. Just talk to the artist. If you don't know how to display something, talk to the artist. Ask their opinion.
Yep.
Honor their opinion. I think that's really going to be the most important part. Honor the artwork. Really look at it how it is. You do get to. There is flexibility in how you decide to display it. But, one thing, like just anecdotally, like Jeff Davis's color study, it's a still, but he's like, they are not supposed to be printed. It's digital colors. The entire effect would get lost if you printed it. So, it's knowing these like little tidbits like that and knowing what's important to the artist. That's really important. So talk to the artist.
Okay. Yeah, no, very good point. And I mean, touching on that, I guess typically the collector owns the rights and can display the piece.
So I think when it comes to displaying an artwork that you own, you have every right to display it. It's when it comes to the reproduction of it, which I think gets really interesting, and I'm speaking from like the more traditional side, and this is something I learned while I was at JP Morgan. Anytime we worked with any artwork that was in the JP Morgan art collection, we had to get explicit approval from the artist or the estate saying that we could use this in a pitch deck or something along those lines. And so it is going to be interesting to see kind of like what, and I think we're all starting to challenge like, what do you get when you own an NFT? I don't own the commercial rights, but to showcase it, I think is completely different. If you own a work, you can definitely showcase it. But it is just best practice to talk to the artist beforehand, especially if you're unsure about how you want to display it. And you're doing a show like that. If it's going to be for your house, do whatever you want, I guess. But if it's going to be for public engagement, you want to make sure that you're honoring the artist as best you can.
Good advice. Okay. So I know that we said we'd speak also about code/art. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes, code art. Yes.
Your other one is ArtxCode. So I just want to make
sure. There's Artblocks. There's all the arts. So Code Art is an organization that is just like so near and dear to my heart. I've been with them since the very beginning. And I think now as generative art starts to explode even more, it's become even more important for me to see more, just girls in the space and at a young age. I think, initially when Code Art was started, the entire premise of it was just to, delight the girls with the creative possibilities of computer programming in hopes that they would, want to become engineers. I think now it's really cool that they can actually, get into this and own their own career as a creative, as an artist is so important, because I'm seeing all the people who are applying to Artblocks, and very few are women. And I am actively on the ground, trying to see like who are the females out there making generative artwork, and it's really hard to find. And so, I think Code Art is actively doing that. We have all these young girls. One of the pieces at the digital actually was one of the students' works. One of my old students, she now works at Code Art. Kayla, it was the two cranes flying. I think she was in seventh grade. She might have been in seventh or eighth, or no, maybe she was a freshman. I'm trying to remember how old she was when she did the artwork. But it's things like that really change everything. And I used to teach all the workshops, and just seeing the girls get so into it is amazing. And I think I'm excited to see the new generation, the new wave of generative artists, and Code Art's really doing that. I really kind of just wanted to touch on that and really express the importance. And if anyone wants to support, head over to their website, donate. It makes all the difference in the world. So, yeah.
Is that Miami focused, or is it?
Yes. So at the moment, it is a Miami-based company. They really focus on a nonprofit organization anyway. Focus in South Florida. I know that during the pandemic, we started to open up our online sessions nationwide, assuming we can get enough sponsor, and not just people provide donating, things like that. We could potentially expand, which would be really wonderful. But yeah, for right now, it's a pretty small operation based in South Florida, but it's really making such an impact on these girls, and it's really cool to see.
That's great. Do you see a big difference? And it is a kind of conversation that's going on at the moment, I think, in particularly the PFP space. I find it a little bit of a forced conversation. I'm not sure where a lot of this is coming from, but people talk about diversity issues. But if you look at traditional art, do you see a lot more female representation there than you do in generative art? Or do you think it's an art thing generally, or is it specifically this technological?
I have to say, like, in no other industry, like I think Ixchel is like the perfect example of this. She is a woman based in Panama who has completely made a name for herself from the comfort of her computer at home. That is not an easy task to do, and she was able to do it in the world of crypto. So I think, right now there's definitely this like idea of like the crypto archetype of, this like super bro-y finance guy. And yes, they exist, but we have women who have come into the space, myself included, like guns blazing, and we're doing it, and I think just the more that we can highlight our voices, make sure that other women can see it and like aren't scared. Like we make crypto, like we make what we want of it. And I think, you can go, there's so many different avenues. And so, yes, we need more women in. I think a lot of people just get intimidated by just the finance side of things. Two, the word itself, crypto, just makes it seem like you need to know all these like crazy things to get into it. And so, I think obviously diversity is an issue, but I think also it's some of the biggest adopters of, these alternative assets, so to speak, like the different coins and stuff, are Black individuals. They're in it, So, we're seeing it. I think it is this counterculture in itself, but I think a lot of the time the main narrative that we see picked up is like, oh, it's just the everyday like white crypto bro. It will always be an issue, but I think one space more than like crypto is like you can do it, like anyone can come in and do whatever they want. And so yes, there's obviously a need for diversity or more opinions of thought, but if people are just going to reject it because they think it's a giant group of white guys, well then the diversity is never going to come. So come and be the change you wish to see in the crypto space.
In one way, I think it's probably one of the most accessible spaces or industries in the world, because it's, by definition, it's online. It's accessible to anybody from anywhere,
and you technically don't have any idea. Like, you have no idea who anyone is. Like, you could be talking to someone who is a woman and it's a male cosplaying as a woman. Like, you never know. Like it doesn't matter. Or I mean, for the longest time I was anonymous online as ArtxCode. Everyone thought I was a dude until I showed up and I was like, hey, it's me. But it was crazy. I used to get messages all the time. What's up, dude? Hey, bro. Like great job what you're doing. And I was always like, thanks, great. And yeah, it wasn't until I think 2020, like probably like towards pandemic side, that I really started to be open about who was behind ArtxCode.
Yeah. No, that's great. No, I agree. I think it's just it's so accessible. You can be anybody. I mean, there's a famous crypto guy on Twitter, and I think he identifies as a couch. I say he. I don't know. It's not he. It's just like
they. I think like who knows? Who knows? I have to say that if there's one place that you can really be whoever you want, it's going to be crypto for sure.
That's probably a fantastic place to end. I just want to thank you again. It was great to meet in Miami. I have great memories of that, of the digital event.
Thank you for coming
there as well. And we'll look forward with eager anticipation to see what comes next from Code Art, from ArtxCode. I want to really thank you very much for spending the time with us on behalf of myself and our members at MS. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.